In September of 2018, Lott was found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Lauren Landavazo. He was also sentenced to 20 years for the shooting of Makayla Smith. Attorneys tried to appeal on the basis the verdict and sentence were contrary to the law and evidence, which they maintained was insufficient to justify the verdict and sentence. After the initial appeal was denied in November, Lott's defense team maintained the verdicts were obtained using inadmissible evidence and then appealed to the state appeals court.
Defense attorneys failed in their effort to get a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity.
Whisper in the night dark, footsteps in the backyard, shadows dance on stained walls, bloodlust every nightfall. Fear grips like chains tight, chasing you in moonlight. Eyes gleam with twisted clay, no escape from me.
What up, home slices, home fries, and homes of other varieties? If you are new, welcome. I'm Emily, the Fine Art Medium. I'm a psychic medium who specializes in the paranormal, and I have a degree in social deviance. And if you've been here before, welcome back. It's nice to see you again. And so today's video, we are going to be looking at the case of Lauren Landavazo and the attempted murder of Makayla Smith, with the perp being Kody Lott. Now this case is weird and interesting because it kind of seems a little bit random. And I will go into the full case details so we have the full background before I go into my channeled notes to see if this is paranormal, psychological, or both. So yes, let's crack into it. As usual, sources will be linked down below in the description box. So let's get into his case. Now I have a few articles here that I'm going to relay information from, just because I felt like they were really good sources and really, talk about the stuff that happened. All right, so we have a Texas man. He's 22 years old. His name's Kody Lott, and he is responsible for murdering Lauren Landavazo and shooting 13-year-old Makayla Smith September 2nd, 2016. So, yes, he faces a count of murder and one count of aggravated assault in the death of Lauren Landavazo, 13, and shooting of Makayla Smith, also 13 years old at the time. And they were shot by a man who drove up beside them while they were walking from school. The man reached into the passenger area and produced a rifle-type firearm. The affidavit states Lott admitted to the shootings and he planned and thought it out after talking to the devil about it. Landavazo's preliminary autopsy showed she was shot 14 times. Smith recovered from 3 separate shooting wounds. The Wichita Falls Times Record News reports Lott has been ruled incompetent, and because of that, he was transferred to the State Hospital of Northern Texas, and he has up to 120 days in the facility for further examination with the goal of receiving treatment so he'll be competent enough to stand trial. He is also charged with 3 counts of possession of child pornography. I don't want to say it outrightly because YouTube will, ban my shit, and his bond totals $1,056,000. So it is clear to say that he's got some issues, right? Now let's talk about some other things here. I wanted to know about his psychological situation because, to me, just based off of the information that I've learned through the articles, he was diagnosed, I believe, with schizoaffective disorder in 2015. But based off of what I learned from reading, I feel like he's got other things going on with potential for antisocial personality disorder and maybe conduct disorder, but I don't know too much of his past. So if we could find any kind of information saying like his background in terms of growing up, maybe he had a knack for committing crimes. If so, then perhaps it would align with the conduct disorder. But that's a guess because, again, we don't know all of his information. And guys, just so you know, I say this in a lot of my videos, but even though I do have a degree in social deviance, I am not a licensed professional, so I cannot officially diagnose anybody with anything. This is just my educated opinion, and you can take it or leave it. It is your decision with what you do with the information. But based off of what I'm learning, I feel like he's got other things going on, and perhaps some antisocial personality disorder due to the lack of empathy that he displays during his trial. But continuing, so Wichita County public defenders put a psychiatrist on the stand for about an hour to build a case Monday afternoon that Kody Lott is not guilty by reason of insanity for murdering Lauren Landavazo, who was 13, and that was 2 years ago from this article. Wichita County Criminal District Attorney Maureen Shelton then spent about an hour on cross-examination to tear down Dr. Brian Falls' credibility and demolish his testimony in a 7th-floor courtroom in downtown Fort Worth. Falls testified about reasons Lott gave for shooting Lauren Landavazo and her friend Makayla Smith on September 2nd, 2016. They range from for the thrill of it, to vent his hatred of women, to get attention and save children by shooting Lauren Landavazo, who he believed was an angel who couldn't die, Falls said. Okay, Lott is accused of murdering Lauren Landavazo with a semi-automatic rifle and of the aggravated assault of a deadly weapon of Smith in an alleyway as they walked home from McNeil Middle School. That Friday afternoon, he fired from a gold Tahoe and sped away from the ensuing pandemonium. According to testimony, he was free for 2 days until a 911 caller tipped police off. Falls testified that Lott was suffering from delusions. He believed that Lauren was an angel and she couldn't die, and by shooting her, he was sending her to another dimension, Falls said. Lott believed children were being sacrificed by a cult or gang, and the shooting would bring God's attention to these wrongs and spur him to intervene on behalf of the world, the psychiatrist told the jury. Falls said statements Lott made to police and his interviews of the defendant over nearly 7 hours indicated Lott labored under a jumble of, at times, conflicting beliefs about the crime. Lott was also jealous of what Lauren Landavazo had with her boyfriend. Since he didn't get caught right away, Lott figured the devil was helping him, Falls said. With Rasmussen's prompting, Falls created a picture of a troubled young man suffering from a major psychotic disorder who used marijuana, methamphetamines, and opioids. Before the shooting, Lott ingested 40 milligrams of hydrocodone, an opioid, Falls testified. Lott likely began to unravel mentally and use drugs at 12 or 13 years old when his parents divorced, Falls testified. Falls said he spent more than 50 hours of work and his $300 per hour rate on the case. The psychiatrist reviewed records from the Wichita Falls Police Department and from mental and substance abuse institutions where Lott received treatments. Falls said Lott received a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder upon discharge from the University of Texas Harris County Psychiatric Center before the shooting. Oh, Jesus. Their brain makes it so that they lose touch with reality, Falls told the 7-man, 5-woman jury. In Lott's case, that took the form of visual and auditory hallucinations, prominent delusions, and disordered thinking, Falls testified. He didn't make much sense at times, the psychiatrist told the jury. In addition, the disorder in Lott's brings depression, but the disorder can be treated with medications. Rasmussen asked if Falls thinks Lott was insane the day of the shooting. It's my opinion that Mr. Lott did not know the wrongfulness of his conduct, the psychiatrist said. The issue is proving an insanity defense were spelled out on the jury questionnaire for the case. Not guilty by reason of insanity means at the time of the conduct charged, the defendant, as a result of severe mental disease or defect, did not know his conduct was wrong. Shelton began her cross-examination by putting Falls on the defensive. Okay, so it looks like Lott kept watch on Lauren Landavazo for a year from windows in his mother and stepfather's apartment near the school, Falls said. Lott contended it was a planned, sophisticated crime. Lott commented that murdering Lauren was in God's plan, Falls testified. Lott termed her death a tragic event and noted that he felt bad for taking an innocent girl's life, Falls said. Lott pleaded not guilty to both charges. According to Makayla, she remembers him stopping, and then they all just kind of stopped walking. The young male inside had shaggy brown hair, a big nose, and acne, she said. We made eye contact for a few seconds, and then added that he then got a gun out. He pointed it at her, and then she got hit. She thought she got hit in the middle of the chest because she couldn't breathe. She indicated to her other friend to get away. Then Smith heard more shots and wondered why they weren't being hit. She said her tears began to flow. She had to sit down because she couldn't keep standing. She was feeling her blood run down her chest and down her stomach. The other friend asked her if what had happened just was a joke. Then Smith turned, and all she could see from her vantage point was Lauren's legs as she lay on the ground. She screamed her friend's name, but she didn't respond. Smith took out her cell phone and called her mom, and then the ambulances were coming, and people from the neighborhood were coming out. A man came up and asked her if she believed in God. She said yes. When Lauren Landavazo's mother, Bianca, arrived, I heard her scream. Then the police and medical personnel responded and set up to work. She was asking questions. She was asking if Lauren was okay. She was getting mad, but was very cooperative. They put her on a gurney, and then they were rolling her into the ambulance, and she saw that Lauren had a white sheet over her, and of course Smith prayed and prayed that her friend would live. Smith's father and brother came to the hospital and said at first her brother couldn't even come into the room. Smith said she still has a bullet in her body from the shooting that day. Doctors told her it would be best to allow her body to reject it so they could get to it instead of doing surgery. And so I guess there's a lot of complications with that. There was an article that I read, though, saying that he kind of laughed at some of the stuff. And that he showed no remorse, which is really fucked up. So I'll link the court proceedings here. It gives like the details of the day and the time and who said what. I don't want to go through all of it or we'd be here for a long time. But yes, so that's the gist of the case here. So the question is, was it psychological, an attachment, or both? Now, while I tapped into his energy, I did feel the lack of empathy. I felt that he was very immature. And he was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. I've talked about this in previous episodes of this marathon here. Okay, so here's a quick rundown if you don't remember what schizoaffective disorder is. So it is a health condition, a mental health condition, that is marked by a mix of schizophrenia symptoms such as hallucinations, delusions, and a mood disorder. And you can have two types. You can have bipolar type or depressive type. Bipolar includes bouts of hypomania or mania and sometimes major depression. And then depressive only includes depression bouts. And yeah, so he was diagnosed with that in 2015. We know based off of the articles that he has some kind of substance abuse situation. Now, I did want to add a little bit of information because I had picked up the immaturity thing, and knowing that he has substance abuse issues, that could explain it. Now, if you're somebody who is unfamiliar with how substances and how they alter the brain, if you don't understand any of that, essentially what happens is when somebody begins using substances or has some sort of addiction, typically the age in which they start is kind of where the maturity advancement either stalls or just stops. Now, in his case, it makes sense because he allegedly started around 12 or 13 years old. They're guessing anyway. And it makes sense because of how he acts. So, because he started at that age, even though he was 22 years old at the time of the crime, he had the maturity of a 13 or 12-year-old. And that also plays into effect here when it comes to the mental health issues that he has, how he handles himself, the behaviors that he does. He's stuck in that mindset of a child, unfortunately. Do I think he knew right from wrong? Absolutely. I think he knew right from wrong, and I think he knew what he did was wrong. And it's evident through the constant switching of his reasoning, his motive, why he did what he did, that he's just trying to dance around the fact that he knew right from wrong and he's just trying to kind of get out of it. But, and again, that is part of the maturity of this person. So that, I just wanted to add that perspective. And some of the articles, again, he lacked empathy, but I suspect that, and this was through channeling that I received this information, not through the articles, but I suspected that he has had a history of committing crimes or substance abuse and so on and so forth, which is why I was kind of also leaning towards antisocial personality disorder. And again, if you don't know what that is, I know I've covered it, but briefly, it's a mental health condition that involves a long-term pattern of disregard for and violation of others' rights. They are typically manipulative, impulsive, they lack empathy, they're irresponsible, they tend to get into trouble, really. They're aggressive, lack of remorse again. But yes. And the reason why I also suspected the conduct disorder is because, so conduct disorder, again, is a mental health condition that is diagnosed when, children or teens exhibit serious, aggressive, and antisocial behaviors that violate rules or rights of others with little to no guilt or concern regarding their actions. So people with conduct disorder act out at home, at school, and in other situations. And due to the fact that his parents were divorced, I feel like that had a huge toll on his mental health, and I think it kind of just spun into that. And you can have conduct disorder alongside antisocial personality disorder. He also had an issue with child pornography, and so that tells me already that he was going to be already a problem in society. Whether he unalived people via firearm, I still think if it wasn't that, it would have been something else terrible that goes along with the child. He was attracted to Lauren, who was 13. He was 22. Again, problem. So, things ain't right. And I feel like because of his mental health situation, it did attract an attachment, but I don't think the attachment was the cause of his negative, illegal harmful behaviors. I think the attachment is a result of the behaviors. So I don't think that he was possessed or anything. I think he planned it out with the devil or whatever. I think that was part of hallucination and delusion because of his mental health conditions, in addition to drug use. I mean, I don't have to go over the effects of drugs. Anyone who went through school probably had a drug program at school that talked about the harmful effects of drugs. So I don't need to go into all of that. But when you take opioids and you do methamphetamines and marijuana, those already have a tendency to make people hallucinate and be delusional. And so you have that on top of a potentially already delusional personality disorder or schizoaffective disorder, and you mix it all together, and what do you get? You get a clusterfuck of shit, honestly. So, I think he already had issues before the attachment, honestly. And to me, I feel like this case is pretty obvious, but to others, when you have people going through a hallucination or psychotic episode where they're talking to demons and spirits and things, they automatically think it's paranormal, but that's not always the case, especially here in this situation. No, this guy had issues, and I don't think he was possessed. Not to mention, when I tapped in, I had burning on my back, and it felt like the best way to describe it almost looked like a flea or a tick or some kind of other parasitic entity. It was this big, and it was just lashed onto his back. When you have people under possession and influence, typically there's an entity. You'll see that there's something going on more than just some bug looking thing on someone's back. Usually in cases with possession, you'll see either it can be a descended earthy, or a trickster. There's a lot that goes into it, but his attachment was very simplistic, not easy to get rid of. And when I mean simplistic, I mean just the makeup of it, not of why it's there and how to get rid of it. It's just simplistic in its nature. There's not very much tomfoolery going on. It's there to drain and have an energetic exchange. So it's not trying to manipulate or do anything. It's literally like a tick sucking energy instead of blood from the person. And he's just a great source to do that because of his mental health issues and all the problems that he causes in society and the victims that he has. He doesn't need to be made or forced to do those things because his mental health situation already makes him do those things. And so the entity is just there for the ride. It doesn't really have to put forth much energy to get him to do anything because he's doing it naturally on his own. So, yeah, I mean, other than that, that's really what's going on here. But guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. If you think that I'm wrong, tell me. I'm not going to get mad. If you have a different opinion, put it down below. But based off of what I was seeing when I was channeling, I wasn't seeing anything crazy. But yeah, guys, I'm going to end it here. And I will see you tomorrow. Peace out.